Hey y'all, welcome back to Nosedive. We've got Tom Eddleston here with us, founder and CEO of Fabric, a functional beverage company making THC infused drinks inspired by his homeland of Australia. We're so happy to have him on the podcast today to share his journey from from the corporate space, how he transitioned to entrepreneurship, and why he chose the non-alc space. So Tom, welcome to Nosedive. How's it going?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yes. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself and maybe just like your background from going from sort of the corporate space into entrepreneurship and why you chose the non-alc space.
Yeah, sure. So grew up in Australia, went to school in Australia, did the standard kind of college routes, and at the end of my 4 years of college, I went and did a season snowboarding at Whistler, and it was
Okay.
incredible. Loved it. That was in my total party phase at that stage and had an amazing time. But met an American girl. And so then what was like a holiday romance became her looking at moving to Australia and got serious really quickly. And so, yeah, she actually moved out to Australia, had a 1 year visa. And at the end of her 1 year visa, it was my turn. And so it was like, oh shit, if we're doing this, I've got to kind of, show up. And I ended up selling off my, meager life possessions at that stage. I think got rid of an old 2005 Subaru Forester and took my life savings and moved to the US. And yeah, so I've been in the US for kind of on and off 10 years now. Arrived in 2014, and yeah, I found my way into the corporate world. Um, that was never really the plan, but listening to your podcast, it's really amazing hearing so many people have just the same experience of you have
Totally.
no idea what you want to be when you grow up. I still don't. And that it's like you just follow this conventional pathway, and next thing you are sitting in meetings wearing a suit surrounded by people thinking like, how the hell
Mm,
did I get here? And
yeah.
um, for me, it was a huge blessing. It was kind of my only option because I had to get a job that would sponsor me. And the
Mm,
strings attached are like, you have to, in order to get sponsored by an employer, you have to find a job that is related to your degree. And I did,
mm.
I studied real estate and finance. And, even why I did that was kind of like figuring it out as I go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was literally enrolled in a marketing degree, and then came home one day and met a neighbor who was like, drove a nice car, had a nice house, seemed to take lots of holidays, and he was like, "Oh, you're studying marketing. You should consider real estate." And I was like, "Okay," and literally went and changed my degree the next day. Like that was how just young and naive, and so
Like, yeah, that sounds
um,
good. Why not?
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, cool. If it means like if I can take more holidays and like earn more money, then sure. Um, but just kind of like didn't really know what I wanted to do. Just knew that I needed to put kind of one foot after the other. And then next thing, I find myself in the US. Again, blissfully naive. I arrived in the US with a 90-day tourist visa and figured 90 days is plenty of time to find a job that'll sponsor you, right? And I landed a job on day 89, which was just
Wow.
insane. And I swear that the only reason they gave me
Damn.
the job was they could smell the desperation. Like they knew that if they didn't give me the job, that I was leaving the country. And the irony actually was that I had to leave the country regardless because I had to be, outside of the US on day 90 so that I wasn't technically overstaying.
Mm,
So
yep.
um, yeah, needless to say, it was kind of like a wild ride to arrive in the US. And yeah, then I was landed this like amazing job on paper. And it was incredible. I was in Chicago, I was in the 55th floor of this office tower, floor to ceiling glass windows, and being like, how the hell did I end up here?
Yeah.
And yeah, like distinctly remember within the first week of me being at that company, it was very much a happy hour culture, very big drinking culture, and a total old boys club. So there's this part of me that was like, wow, this is really cool. It kind of feels like I'm in an episode of Mad Men, and that you go from the fancy
like
office
you made it.
Yeah.
100%.
Like, this is what success feels like.
Totally. Success is starting with a old fashioned and then moving to wine and then finishing the evening at a cigar bar, and like total old boys club. But to give you an example of like how ingrained drinking was in the culture, the first week we were walking from the office over to the bar, and they were talking about someone like a employee who had left the company, and it was a really abrupt. It had only been hired a month prior, and the CEO at that time of this company of hundreds of people says, yeah, it was a real shame. We found out he had a drinking problem. And everyone's like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, the problem was he didn't drink. And so
Wait, what?
That was like,
wow.
This individual had seen the writing on the wall and was like, I'm not going to be able to succeed here as a sober person. And that was the absolute truth. Like the culture was so ingrained, and the expectation was that you were, whining and dining clients, and that you just kind of went through the motions. And then, as you guys have talked about on prior podcasts, it's like the expectation is that you then show up the next day and 9 a.m. on the dot or earlier, and it almost goes unspoken. Like you don't mention what happened the night before. You just resume doing your work, and no one mentions that like I'm hungover, because you're meant to just suck it up and continue. And it was like, there was a period of this that I was still adjusting to this whole corporate world and thought, I guess this is just what you do. And up until that point, I think my relationship with alcohol, being an Australian, drinking is like a national sport, but there's actually pretty good. It's a binge culture, and so Monday to Thursday, even Monday to Friday, people would almost totally abstain. Like I knew a lot of people that didn't touch alcohol, and their mentality was like, if I'm going to drink one, I'm going to drink 10. And that, why would I do that on a Tuesday night? And so I'd had this, still warped relationship with booze, but it had some guardrails around it. It was like Monday to Friday, you're functional, you go to the gym, you go to work, and then Friday night rolls around, and also in your 20s, I think
to the wall.
Exactly. It was every weekend. And as you're kind of navigating this path from college and being around your friends and constantly having this social interaction, and then you're in this stuffy corporate environment, it's like suddenly you start looking forward to that more and more. And I think we're just conditioned, like you're sharing your stories with your friends who are also navigating the same experience and being like, this is fucking weird. Like we put this mask on, go to work.
Yeah, it's like, this doesn't feel weird,
right. Yeah, the weird and the not good weird way.
100%. Yeah, it was so strange. And then, and like in your 20s, you can also bounce back. So I would go out on a Friday night and then would still wake up and like go skateboarding on a Saturday, and then, do it all over again. Moving to the US in my mid-20s, and then suddenly the expectation was that I was drinking on school nights, like I was suddenly a Tuesday work dinner, a Thursday happy hour, and then one thing that the US has that Australia doesn't have is the big like boozy brunch culture. So I was amazed, like living in Chicago, again, first few weeks of getting there, going out to brunch and then putting a drinks menu in front of me before I'd seen a food menu. And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I've got a Bloody Mary with a sidecar of beer in front of me, and it's 9 a.m.
It's 9 a.m.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
totally.
and then obviously, then that just kind of sets the tone for the day. And so it was like just going through the motions, and then it became an extension of the week, which was, so we boozed on Friday night, had a work dinner on Wednesday, Saturday morning, we wake up, we go to brunch, and then kick on to another bar and kind of see where that takes you. And it just, like, in hindsight, it feels a little bit Truman Show-esque, where you just kind of lived, it just kept going. And then it was like, show up on Monday at this job that you don't love, putting the mask back on and doing it all over again. And so for me, I think I kind of avoided existential crisis because I had this visa, and it basically said, you can't do anything else. If you want to be in this country and you want to, give this relationship a real try, then this is what you have to suck up. And in many ways, I think it was actually really good for me because it was guardrails at a time that I needed them, and forced me to kind of say, like, okay, Monday to Friday, I have to do this. I got to try and find some way to enjoy it. And for a while, like, the cocktail culture and the drinks and all of that, like, you do think, wow, this is cool, this is sexy. And
totally.
Yeah. So all that to say, when kind of fast forward, COVID hits, and it was much like the rest of the world. I suddenly took this step back and was like, is this it? I think a lot of things had happened in the interim too. Like, work was going really well. I'd convinced myself that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder and that I wanted to be in that room. And then you kind of get there, and I started to look around and do like the boardroom test, where you kind of say, why am I trying to get into this room when there is no one in the room whose life I like want to emulate, who none of these people I have any admiration for, and like they're all kind of losers. Like, well paid, don't get me wrong. But
for sure. Their definition of success is a little different.
100%. And it was really strange. It was like this moment of awakening where it's like, okay, if I continue down this path, my the markers of success is more money, and yet, like, does money truly make you any happier? Because what I'm looking around and seeing in this room is a guy who is twice divorced, whose kids hate him, and is married to the job, whose only friends are the clients that he wines and dines. A woman who looks like she's on the verge of breakdown, because essentially same thing. There tends to be a lot of like divorce, infidelity. You've ignored your kids, and that it's all catching up with you. And I mean, you've got to imagine these people like are bitterly unhappy too. Like, if I can see it, surely they have some sense that, this ain't it either. So that was probably the point at which I just started kind of reassessing my relationship with alcohol in general, and starting to think about, like, what more do I want?
So what, I mean, that time, I mean, I can resonate so much too, because I just recently left my corporate job in September, and I felt the exact same way. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like you look around and you see your quote unquote superiors, and you're like, no, I don't want that. So with that shift, how does that translate to starting and co-finding Fabric?
Yeah, so COVID was, I guess, the turning point. And at that stage, I was like, Australia had shut down, and they like hadn't found the distance living in the US, literally on the other side of the world, terribly challenging up until that point because I always had family and friends kind of cycling through, and then I would do a trip at least once a year. And if I ever felt really homesick, I was in a position where I could kind of afford to book a flight. And that was, the perks of the corporate world. And is part of the trap. Right? It's like, you earn enough money that you can be really comfortable. And things that you guys have touched on, like just the alcohol ends up being this escapism. And when you have this weekly escape, and then you can afford to be booking a quarterly holiday and going somewhere cool, and then you just suck it up. And it was like, this is the price I pay for having these experiences. And then again, I think you start to look at that objectively and say, is 3 months of working 60-hour weeks doing something that I hate worth the 10-day trip to Europe? And so Australia reopened in early 2022, and I was like, I'm going to move back to Australia, quit my job, and take some time to figure out what's next. And so in classic, millennial fashion, rather than just simply taking the time and sitting still, I was like, I need to go and do an MBA. And so I, found an MBA in Sydney and jumped into that because I was convinced myself that that was going to be a year of time off where I still felt like I was moving the needle forward. Which is true, but shit, what an expensive way to spend a year off and do soul searching. Needless to say, I hadn't found therapy quite yet at that point, and that probably would have been, a much cheaper, more effective way of doing some soul searching. But the MBA experience was fun. I think I had a lot of realizations coming into that as well. It was like, despite having this, career in the US where I'd done really well, I still felt this weird imposter syndrome and showed up like, there's 50 people who have been hand selected for this course, and I kind of snuck in the back door. And then quickly realizing that, if this is the top program, in Australia, and I'm meeting all these people from Ivy Leagues, like the top Ivy Leagues in the world, who are doing exchange programs. And I was like, if this is the kind of cream of the crop, I'm not that impressed. And that it was maybe broader realizations of literally everyone is winging it and figuring it out as they go. And
yeah,
I still believe that 100%, that it was with anyone and everyone, right? Growing up, you have this idea.
Was that a relief?
Oh, huge, massively. And I think a lot of the imposter syndrome was lifted immediately because it was just okay, well, and all these people, the other commonality between them was that of the 50-person cohort, I would say 90% were there because they were disillusioned with what they were doing and wanted to try and find purpose. And again, kind of a bizarre way to do it by doing an MBA and gearing yourself more towards corporate world. But everyone there was like, I want to find a way that I can build upon the existing skills that I've had and do something with more impact. And so that was really comforting in a way too, was to see that these were really well-intentioned, good people. But the sad part was that they, at the end of the MBA, very few of them made any like meaningful leap. A lot of them went back to the same kind of roles that they were in before. And I think there's like analogs there with kind of drinking, you know, and that it's scary and you can try something for a while, but to really make the leap and commit and stay the course is fucking scary. And so it can be so much easier to just revert back to what you were doing. And
Absolutely.
I sit here and I don't mean to sound all high and mighty because I literally did the same thing. I was dead set that like I've quit corporate America. I've moved back to Australia. I've had this moment of like, I'm not going back into this finance world. I'm not going to do it. And then a recruiter called and said, hey, how about 100K more than you were earning in the US? And I sold out and I went back to it. And I was like, well, you know, like life in Sydney was really expensive. I've just had this year off doing this MBA. Like I need to do this. And that was the definition of insanity. I went back to the same thing. And within weeks of being there, was just, again, so disillusioned. And I was probably at that stage in a role that was like what I thought was the dream gig 10 years earlier. It was like, this is where you've truly made it. And I got there and had never felt like more empty. And just like that existential crisis that kind of began in COVID was now full blown. And I showed up each day and just was like, this can't be it. And so at that point in time, that was the final straw. And that was when I actually ripped the Band-Aid off. And my now wife and I, she's a nurse. She'd been working in, you know, a really high stress, like, kind of pressure cooker environment too. And so we both quit our jobs, left Sydney, and spent the next 2 months on the road. Did a road trip across the country and had this incredible time. And that was like the actual time to sit with your thoughts, to do some self-exploration and think about what was next, and like actually start thinking about, what do I give a shit about, and how do I want to show up? What is something that's kind of like bigger than me? And it kind of led me to the beverage thing. And like I'd seen non-alc, the boom, and I'd seen athletic brewing. It was really taking off at that stage. And I saw like a lot of room to create a kind of cooler version of athletic brewing. Something that, you know, belongs more in kind of dive bars and like with athletes and artists, and a bit more like cultural resonance. And so the original idea was a non-alc beer. And then, we decided we were going to move back to the US, and my wife is from Colorado, and we both love Colorado and all things outdoors. So we moved back here and started kind of putting the wheels in motion. It was like, I'm going to build a team, and I want to have co-founders. Like, I want to have this combined, you know, journey and share the vision with someone else. And synced up with an old friend of mine, and then with like an amazing Denver creative named Haley Jordan, who has done a lot of work in the non-alc world. And we all just had similar philosophies. Like, none of us were sober, but we were all, you know, very much sober curious. We were all moving away from alcohol, and we were all just trying to live more. And when you're in Colorado, it can become really easy, because you're like, your excuse for not drinking on a Friday night is that I'm actually going to get out of bed at 5 a.m. and I'm going to go and do this hike on this empty trail and like have this experience. And so the trade-off between drinking and like doing some really cool shit, was pretty easy. And so you kind of set off to create a non-alc beer, and then there's a lot of challenges with that. Like removing the alcohol is kind of removing a lot of the flavor, and then given that this is fairly new, there's not a lot of expertise in non-alc beer, and even things like commercial viability. Athletic is dominant, and so like no matter how premium you make the product, it can be really hard to command like a big premium in price over them. And so, and it didn't really feel like particularly authentic either, because we were still all enjoying the occasional beer or occasional cocktail. And THC had been such a good substitute for us, and something that was suddenly like federally and state legal at low dose. And so we were like, well, what about if we can take the parts of drinking that we really enjoy, which is like the history, the camaraderie, the culture, the bringing people together, which, you know, is more important than ever, right? To get together with people who don't necessarily share your worldview, to interact with strangers, to get off your phone. And so we're like, what if we can create a low dose, sessionable kind of beverage that belongs at your favorite brewery, belongs at a dive bar, and that you can take to a family barbecue, and you can drink in exactly the same way as your friends are drinking light beers. And, you know, if you can do that, but also sleep better, and then get up and still go to the gym or like have that experience the next day, it's like, wow, we feel like we're really onto something.
Yes.
Wow.
I love all of that.
I know. I'm like, there's so many things that I just want to like go back to what you said. And I'm like, putting a pin there, put a pin there. And I probably have too many pins at this moment, but I do want to go back a little bit before we dive more into fabric and, you know, the product itself, because I very much so resonate with what you were saying after getting your MBA, being like, okay, I'm going back into the corporate world, because I feel like I'm kind of at this point in my journey where I'm like, I'm seeing that, you know, as an option. It's at least an option, right? And I keep thinking about it, and, you know, I'm talking with my friends, and it's like, yeah, well, I'll have the financial stability to at least be able to like take the trips I want to take, or, you know, have experiences that I may not be having right now. And then as soon as like I go to just maybe reach out to someone that I know in the space, or even start to look, I'm like, I can't fucking do it. I can't fucking do it. And I haven't gone back yet, but it's just like this feeling that I feel afraid to do, because I am afraid of that emptiness once I quote unquote get there. And I'm curious what that felt like for you, like when you went back and you're like, I got to the point I always thought I wanted, and it was just like hollow. Like, what about it, or what did you feel like? What specifically did you feel, maybe like in your body or just in your thoughts daily, that made you feel like, no, this ain't it again?
Oof.
I need a little reminder.
Yeah. No, like your skepticism is very fair. And like, I just couldn't shake this feeling of this can't be it. And the trajectory you get on when you go back to that and you're seeking this kind of comfort is that, you know, the next thing is going to be you are buying a house with the corporate salary. And so you buy, like, I don't know many people who don't buy the most expensive thing they can afford, right? Especially when it comes to a home, and that everything is expensive. And so, yeah, like it's always a stretch. It's always stressful. And then you've just set yourself up for, you can never earn less than that in order to pay your mortgage. And then, you know, kids will come into the equation, and then the longer you wear that corporate mask, the harder it becomes to take off. And I think that like at a certain point, people wear it so long that they start to forget, like, what do I look like without it on? And that you have to keep convincing yourself that you're doing the right thing, right? Because like, hey, well, we're having kids, so I need to give them a stable environment, and economic certainty is really important to me right now. Like, I've got the mortgage, like I couldn't possibly do these things. I need to be an example for my kids. And I think what you realize is that like everything is hard. And so there's the old cliche that I really like is just choose your hard. And so what is hard is showing up at an office every day and feeling this like emptiness. But you convince yourself that you're doing it for something bigger than you. But I'm about to have my first child, and my wife's due in like 2 weeks' time, and this is the most financially.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It's super exciting, and also super daunting because like this is the most financially insecure I've been in my adult life, and this is not the point that I imagined having my first child into the world, and it's stressful. But like, if I think about the alternative, like the way I want to show up for my child is like I want them to see that you should take risks in order to pursue happiness, and that to do something that scares you, and that like at this stage I have an insurance policy. I've got 10 years in corporate, and if I absolutely had to fall back on that, I would. But the longer it goes, it's now been the better part of 12 months, and I just cannot imagine myself. I don't think I will ever go back. And it's like quitting alcohol too. Like it's choose your hard. It's really fucking hard at the beginning, but then the less you drink, the less you want to drink, and you kind of realize like you see all this the world of potential out there. And so I don't know. I think that stepping back into the corporate world feels like a huge regression, and that you are stepping into someone else's version of like what we should be doing and what success looks like. And that kind of like mediocrity terrifies me.
Yeah, I think that's such a good reminder, especially just like how Mara is saying, like, I'm so newly out of the corporate space, but this isn't the first time that I've done it either. So it's like, I love that you said that, choosing your hard, like we sometimes make it a lot harder on ourselves, but it's kind of a simple thought process. Like, what do you want your heart to be? And my husband even says something similar where it's like it's life is fucking hard sometimes. So like, do you want to be miserable sitting in the corporate space, or do you want to be semi-miserable trying to make something work that you're actually passionate about? So yeah, that reminder is really great.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Tom.
Mara, I was just going to say, one of the things that you touched on as well, you said like it would be nice to be able to afford, the trip. And I think ultimately what I aspire to do is to try and like create a life that I'm not trying to escape from, and that I don't need holidays away from. And that, don't get me wrong, I'm working more than I ever have in my life. Like, was just working all weekend, and but like I chose this path, and it's so fulfilling, and I'm doing something that like has a mission behind it, and I'm doing it with people who I really really like and admire. And like what comes of this frankly doesn't matter. Like if it all fell apart, I will have been so much better off for doing it. And now I've just like shown myself that, well, holy shit, if I could do that really hard thing, then what's next? And yeah, I think we all do that in different ways. Like, need to prove to ourselves that we can do hard things, and that sometimes like the most fun and rewarding things in life are just doing a big, dumb, hard thing for no reason.
Oh my gosh, touche. That's so funny. No, I think just I want to try to repeat what you said. Like, it's ideal to create a life that you're not trying to escape. And yeah, I think, you know, my personal situation is very different. My expenses, you know, aren't astronomical. I live off, you know, a pretty small budget. I'm single. I don't have kids, you know, so of course I tell myself like, okay, if I go back into the corporate world, like I'm going to make money so that I'm not going to outlive my means. I'm pretty good at like, you know, I wouldn't go and buy a fucking house. Like I'd be like, fuck, I don't want to do that. You know, like that's not something I whatever inspire to have right now. But you know, so it's like constantly weighing these pros and cons of, like you said, choosing your hard. But at the end of the day, there's still this gut knowing that I can't ignore because it's been 3 fucking years now and I'm still not back. And I'm like, I just can't. I just I just can't do it. But it's, I guess the hard is trying to figure out like how to create the life that I do want without it being like this
Like
escapism.
compromising.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I think too, I look around and I don't know if this is necessarily fair, but I kind of then can feel guilty because I'm like, there's so many people in this world doing shit they don't want to do. Like, get over it, Mara. Get a fucking job. Like, and yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of
Yeah,
struggle with all of those, you know, complexities.
I've struggled with that too, and I think like I'm the first to say wildly privileged, right? Like growing up um, in the country that I did and being a white male, like being able to take this risk right now and kind of bet it all, knowing that the worst possible thing that happens is that like I would declare bankruptcy and move back in with my parents. Like, you know, that even the worst case scenario is still fine. And that and so like with that privilege, I actually feel more compelled to do things that like to say like fuck dude, you've got all this privilege. Why would you waste that going back to a corporate job when you should be the one who is like showing me how to like do something, take those risks. You can afford to. And that's not the case for many people, right? Like when you are truly living paycheck to paycheck, when you don't have family who you can like move back into their house. And you know, I didn't grew up in very much a blue collar household, and um, but that's besides the point, right? Like it wouldn't have mattered. I still have this loving, supportive family unit who are always going to be there to love and support me. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that, like,
Yeah.
reach for something more than
It's such a
your
good.
your parents' version of success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
Yeah.
it resonates for sure. And
And that's such a good
perspective is
reframe.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, such a good reframe, especially for just as a reminder for people who are in these scenarios, who are afraid of taking that risk and really looking at their situation of their worst case. As you said, it's kind of similar with me. Like, worst case scenario, we move back in with my parents. Like, is that really so bad? And so I love your take on reframing that into, why wouldn't you take the risk then? You know, I think that's something that's super interesting that I haven't even really tapped into yet. So I think that's a great takeaway for us too. Like, what is our actual worst case? And it's really not that bad. So what the fuck are we talking? Like, no, we need to do the damn thing.
Yeah, and like you guys have already made leaps and bounds, right? Like you're doing these things that you never imagined doing a year earlier. And that if you can just set aside like the shame and the embarrassment with doing something that you're not good at in the beginning, which I think that's like a problem of all adults, is that we don't want to go back to not being good at something. And that was case in point. My entire MBA cohort was like, went back to the thing that they knew that they would get a pat on the back for being good at, and earn good money, rather than going and doing something that was hard and new and when they had to take a pay cut. And that was the sad reality of it, right? Was like they weren't willing to start at the bottom of the ladder again. And that, I don't know, I just think when you do that, and I'm sure you guys have had these realizations already, is that you've proven to yourself that you can do something hard and new and foreign, and that now you're like, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. And that's the mentality I'm trying to like embrace more and more.
Sure. Yeah, love it. Beautifully said. Thank you for going down that tangent with me, because, love those those conversations when my brain is just spinning its wheels. But I would love to dive more into Fabric and just the branding itself. Like, I'm looking on the website and I love it. I also
fucking love it.
Yeah, I fucking love
it.
I love how, because our whole thing too, why we're like, oh my gosh, we would love to talk to Tom, and because our Nosedive is really about just like embracing your weird, like you're unique, you're silly, whatever, and notice throughout the website things that say, for example, like perfect for chilling out or getting weird, just that kind of stuff that people typically only feel comfortable doing when they are intoxicated with alcohol. And yeah, curious if you can just kind of like talk to us more about Fabric, the branding, like what does that mean for you to get weird? Like, and how do you want to invite other people into that space?
Yeah, so I mentioned having two co-founders. They're both from the creative world, and they're both incredible. And so when we got together, I'm kind of like the business side, and they are the creative vision. And I think like, brand and product matter so much. And then like in this world that's increasingly artificial, I think that having like a personality, your brand having a personality, being kind of authentic, as cliche as that is, like, yeah, we just wanted to have some fun with it, and that it's not a serious thing. We're not curing cancer. We just we're putting weed in a can, and yeah, and like our main product and kind of what this was built around was the low dose, the 1.5 milligram. And so for people unfamiliar with THC, 1.5 milligrams is probably the equivalent of a beer or a glass of wine. So obviously tolerances vary the same way as alcohol, but it is a super safe dose for literally anyone. Like you can have that and you are not going to get high. And that was the point, right? It was like, if you, especially being in Colorado, it's like if you want to get high, you can walk into any number of the 1,000 dispensaries around town. You can buy a pre-rolled joint and like, yeah, go stare at the wall for 4 hours if that's what you want to do. But we wanted to just recreate like the low, like the light beer experience. And so, the product that we created was meant to be something that you can have before you go for a hike, during, after, and to try and get people to like tap into that flow state a little bit and just to like dial up the colors, to say, let's go listen to your favorite podcast or like your favorite playlist after you've had 3 milligrams of THC and you were walking like on a beautiful mountain trail. Oof. Like, that is like a spiritual experience, and is just a way to kind of like get weird and just have like a really, to feel something without the consequences. I don't really get that same feeling from booze, and like if I drink any alcohol, if I have a beer in the middle of the day, I feel sluggish, I feel tired, and that if I drink 2 beers in the evening, I will wake up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, like my sleep's fucked, and I'll wake up like craving with certain food cravings and feel like crap, and I'll be grumpy, and like I just can't afford to do that in my work life, and also like for my wife, my pregnant wife. I don't want to show up and be a grumpy prick just because I had a few beers the day earlier. And so, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
like what Fabric is trying to encapsulate, is give you the ability to participate. And, the world that we see is one where you can go to your favorite pub and you can stay in the round. Like you can be there having a drink with your friends, and it shouldn't matter whether that's THC or alcohol. You can still have a laugh. You can still feel something. But then you go home and still make it to the gym the next morning, whereas they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too that I think love about just the non-alc space in general. Like when I was very early on in my sober curious journey, I was on a mission because it was very difficult for me to kind of do that swap out. So I have become, a non-alc curated like connoisseur of like finding anything that I can add to my non-alc kind of bar cart. And so, yeah, just that inclusivity part of like going and being able to go to these spaces where you're wanting to connect with other people and places that you normally go to, and being able to have the option to still be included but not drink is so important. And, I most recently went to this event and they didn't have any non-alc anything that wasn't like juice or sparkling water, because it's different. You want something that somebody has put their thought and passion behind, that's not just like water or juice. And I was like, and it was in California. I was like, what? There's no non-alc anything. And it did make me feel like a little unseen. So I just think what you're doing is just so important to people who want to connect, and the inclusivity and just having that like passion and drive behind it to bring people together. I think it's super important.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really cool. And like the other thing I didn't touch on was that we wanted this to be mission driven. And so, like my MBA cohort wanting to do something with purpose and meaning, we incorporated as a public benefit corporation. And so we have like a legal obligation to consider societal impact rather than just financial. And we donate 2% of proceeds to mental health. And like there are companies out there that say, hey, we donate 10% of profit, but they've been around for 5 years and they've never made a profit. And so you're like, oh, how many dollars have you donated? So
Yeah.
yeah, like early on, we just felt it was really important to be putting our money where our mouth is. And then we were like, okay, 2%. If we do $1 million in revenue in our first year, which would be an amazing result, that's still 20K. So it's like it's not really moving the needle yet. And so we actually launched by donating donating 100% of the proceeds of our first 10,000 cans. And so like that was us kind of making a statement that this isn't an afterthought and that this is something that we want to really be ingrained into the mission. And of course, like revenue right now is really important, and you you have to be a really healthy, sustainable business in order to be able to like make those meaningful donations as you grow. So like, yeah, you have to run your business in the right way, and you have to be really ambitious because we can't, yeah, give out any meaningful amount of money if we are just a like small regional player. So we do have big goals, but part of it is that, yeah, we truly believe that it's the right thing to do, that it's good business, and that I think it will help attract the kind of audience that we want to attract, and maybe get people excited about it sooner, which is really cool.
Yeah, totally. That's how we linked up, was on LinkedIn, through Victoria Waters. She's a co-founder of Dry Atlas, who has a bunch of resources and insights in the non-alc space. And she posted about Fabric and, you're the first 10,000 cans and donating to, what is it? Protect Our Winters,
Yeah.
the climate initiative. And I was just like, how do you even do that? And then that's how we kind of connected. So it's just little, and maybe not little things. It's big things like that are really making an impact and connecting like-minded people to really make a difference. So it's pretty sick.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Wow. What is, Nate, you were saying that it's like GBC or something?
Oh, CB.
CBG?
It was like, yeah, I was looking at one of your options on your website, which I'm so stoked too, by the way. I think my order comes in today. So I'll be able to speak on the product. So I'm really excited. But yeah, CBG, which
Yeah,
I'd
what is
never
that?
heard
Yeah.
of. Can you explain
Yeah,
that? Because I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah, for sure. So, uh, you've probably seen there are like functional drinks out there, and that category is kind of blowing up, especially in non-alc, right? It's like you designed to make you feel something, but without alcohol. And yeah, so a lot of them are adaptogenic kind of beverages. Like they might use lion's mane or ashwagandha or L-theanine, and um, in the cannabinoid world, so THC is the psychoactive, and that's the one that is, making you get a little weird. But then there is CBD, which most people are familiar with, kind of has a relaxing effect. It's called a minor cannabinoid, so there's no psychoactive effect, but you will kind of feel something in the same way that you would with ashwagandha or L-theanine. Most people have heard of CBD, and CBD is a minor cannabinoid, so it doesn't have any kind of psychoactive effect, and it is a relaxing, almost like sedative type effect. And CBG is another minor cannabinoid that has the opposite effect. So it's actually really uplifting and feels almost like caffeine, but without the jitters. So it is definitely kind of having a moment. I think more people are like, oh, wow, we've been so focused on CBD. But for the occasion, like if you want to have a drink that is 2 p.m. rolls around, you're feeling like you'd love to reach for that second coffee or third or, afternoon coffee to get you through. But it's going to impact your sleep. And so CBG is kind of the perfect substitute. And you do feel this like mental clarity and this focus and kind of getting dialed in. But yeah, you're still going to pass a drug test. There's no THC in it. And yeah, I think it's actually more effective than a lot of the adaptogens out there at the moment.
Yeah, because I have heard with adaptogens too, it's something that you have to take over time for adaptogens to really start taking effect. You know, you're not gonna take ashwagandha just like one time and you may feel like semi relaxed in those effects, but adaptogens, from my understanding, um, you have to take kind of over time to really start seeing the benefits from them. But that's super exciting. Like Mara said, you know, I've never really heard of that. So it seems like you're kind of on the forefront of maybe that discovery there. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And to your point, like adaptogens, exactly, you nailed it with like lion's mane and some of those ingredients. They show that like the cognitive function benefits is over a really sustained period, and that uh, it needs to be a fairly high dosage and consistently. And so, like, if you're committing to that, awesome.
Mm.
But you know, buying a can from Whole Foods every other Thursday is not really going to have any huge effect for you. Um, but yeah, the CBG thing, we're using that in our low dose products as well. So like because of the occasion that we're targeting, which can be family barbecues, you know, afternoon at the pub kind of thing, we didn't want THC to be to put you to sleep. And so the CBG kind of helps it be a more uplifting feeling. And for those who are familiar with weed, that gives it a more of a like sativa effect and uplifting rather than yeah, making you feel like you need to go to bed.
You want to go night night.
Yeah, exactly.
uh, oh, that's so cool. I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear Nays once you get it and try it out.
Yeah, I'll have
Yeah.
to set a review for our listeners, let y'all
Yeah.
know how it goes. Because with some of these
Yes.
other ones that I've been trying, holy shit. I'm like, ooh, that's too much.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
Yeah.
I think
Uh
that's honestly like most people's weed experience. There's a lot of people that are really apprehensive to try these beverages because they think back to like a college brownie experience or try you know or like trying an edible for the first time, and the amount of people we encounter who are like, oh no, THC is not for me, and I get it, right? Like they came to Colorado, they went to a dispensary, they had no idea what they were ordering, and they like you know instead of eating the piece of chocolate, they ate a bar of it, and then like yeah, next thing they're like time traveling,
Game
and
over.
yeah,
yeah, that's like the newest episode, or one of these episodes that I watched recently, The Studio with oh my gosh, what's the actor? I love him. He's been in all these he's a comedian. Have you heard of Studio?
no,
It's like all these studio execs and stuff, not Jonah Hill. Anyways, they have like an old Hollywood party spread, and like Zoe Kravitz is there, and she ends up like taking way too many mushrooms because they did the calculations wrong of like the chocolates or whatever, and she just got a little bit too up in the universe. So it just kind of reminds you of that. And like Mara, I could see your face too. You're like, yeah, I could probably think of a time the last time that
yeah,
I
yeah, that's
ingested something like that.
Woof.
yeah, we've definitely all been there, and so that was why like 1.5 milligrams is probably one of the lowest THC dosages on the market, and but some of these brands like this industry was a lot of the operators are legacy weed folks. Like they've come from dispensaries
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, hey, we can put weed in a can now. That's really cool. We should do that. And they're telling people that like, hey, 5 milligrams is a really good starting point for you. that's going to be fine for mum. And like tolerance increases quickly with weed. And so I get, if you've been smoking, ingesting it every day for the last decade, maybe you think that 5 milligrams is an appropriate starting point for people. I'm here to tell like whoever needs to hear this, it is not. And that is like giving a first-time drinker a glass of vodka. So and then being like, oh, you feel fine, right?
That's a really good way to put it.
So
yeah,
yes, if you do want someone to like experience this, then start low and like, drink our 1.5 milligram, that you have 3 or 4 of them and build upon that. And then, the beauty with not being with zero alcohol is we're also able to do that 0 calories, 0 sugar. So it's like kind of a guilt-free
love
little
that.
buzz that is not going to cost you tomorrow.
Seth Rogen, that's his name.
Oh yeah, cool. Seth Rogen actually has his own THC beverage called Houseplant.
He does. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's so funny. That's what I just looked up. I'm like, it's the guy who does Houseplant. So that's so funny you say that.
Yeah, he's legit.
Oh,
my gosh,
sick.
Fun. Yeah, I love your slogan or that y'all have for Fabric: on a mission to unfuck tomorrow. And I think that's just like, it's just like kind of like a little mic drop moment. Like, yep. Love it.
Yeah, it says a lot in a little, and kind of like encapsulates that whole mission. And I don't know, like I think your mission too, right, is like do yourself a favor and unfuck your day tomorrow, and you'll be better for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tom, thank you again so much for your time. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with?
I would maybe just like circle back to what we were talking about earlier, which is that idea of choose your heart, and that for anyone that is on that sober curious journey, that it is hard. There's no doubt about it, because you are you're having to break a habit, and habits can become very much ingrained, and then you have to reckon with this, like, well, what am I going to do in lieu of this thing? And I think if you are not drinking on a Friday night, then make sure you do something with your time. Like on Saturday morning, get up and go and do something cool. Challenge yourself in some way and make it worth it. Because if you are going to wake up and sleep in and doom scroll, you may as well be hungover. And that like that you're not going to see the kind of beauty and have this realization of like, wow, I feel so great, unless you get out of bed and go for the morning walk, kind of see how vibrant like the city park is at 7 a.m. and how many people there are and how like infectious that energy is. And so I don't know, I guess it would just say there's so much cool shit and so many cool ways to spend your time that is not hungover and scrolling on your phone. And so do that.
Thanks, Tom. That's awesome. Yeah. So much appreciation and really excited for your continued journey. Really excited to keep up and kind of like see what y'all are up to and stay in touch and all of that. But this is another side tangent. I'm just curious, 2 things. 1, what part of Australia are you from? And 2, where in Colorado do you all live? Because I'm originally from Miami, but I lived in Denver and then I graduated from CU Boulder. So a little familiar
no way.
with the area.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Originally from Melbourne, and
okay.
Yeah, I went to college in Perth on the West Coast, and my immediate
Yep.
family are now on the West Coast. And then,
Oh, wow.
yeah, when I was most recently back in Australia for 2.5 years, I was in Sydney, so kind of bounced around a bit. But in Colorado, I live in Golden. So yeah, I'm like
Okay.
20 minutes from the city, and really, really cool here is I have a mountain. South Table is like literally my backyard. And so that's just been, you know, really, really positive, as well as that access to the outdoors and being able to kind of clear your head by hitting the trail is awesome.
Amazing. That's awesome. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
Of course.
Thank you again, Tom, and to our listeners. We will link everything in our show notes where you can follow Tom, the team, and Fabric, where you can buy it as well. So thanks again, and we'll definitely do this again and do an update on you and Fabric and everything that's going on in your life. So thanks again. Till
awesome.
next
Thanks
time,
so much,
guys.
Tom.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.